The rain has been falling for 2 hours now, maybe 3, and the road has stopped pretending to be anything other than mud. You are walking north, lantern in your left hand, leather satchel pulling gently at your right shoulder, coat buttoned to the collar against the wet. The breathstone inside the lantern gives off its amber light, warm and slightly unsteady, the way all breathstone light is, as if it is breathing too, as if it is alive in some small way that it has chosen not to make a fuss about. The light falls in a soft circle around your feet, turning the mud gold for a moment before the dark takes it back. Your name is Solon Vare, and you have been walking for the better part of an hour since the coach driver let you down at the last mile post. Apologetic about the road and the weather and the general state of things. You did not mind. You rarely do. The road is quiet except for the rain, which falls steadily and without particular urgency, the way autumn rain does. Not trying to prove a point, just doing what it does. It makes a soft sound against the leaves of the hedgerows on either side, and a thicker sound against your coat, and a thin, bright sound when it finds a puddle. You have cataloged these sounds without meaning to, the way you catalog most things. It is simply how your mind works. It notices. You are halvened, which means you are half here and half somewhere else, in the way that a candle is half light and half heat. The two things come from the same flame and cannot really be separated, but they are not quite the same thing. In the daylight, you look almost like anyone. 37 years old, slight and unhurried, dark hair pulled back and pinned with a little copper clasp. But here, on this dark, wet road between one lantern post and the next, with the rain coming down and the breathstone throwing amber light from below, you are faintly see-through. Not gone. Not a ghost. Just thinned. A little like paper held up to a window. Your hand around the lantern handle is solid enough to grip it, but if you turned it and let the light come through from behind, you could see the glow of it in your palm. You do not think about this very much. It is simply how you are. You have lived this way for 37 years, and you understand that it unsettles some people and does not bother others, and that this particular difference is one of the more reliable ways of knowing who is worth spending time with. You work for the Compact Council. The quiet part of it. The part without a name on any sign or door. The part that handles things that need handling by someone careful who is trusted by both sides of an argument that has been going on, in various forms, for a very long time. The argument, roughly, is this: the breathing, the fully living, and the stilled, the fully dead. Those who have passed on but remained in the world as something other than memory have been sharing this land for 4 centuries with varying degrees of willingness. And the halvened stand between them, which means that depending on who you ask, you either belong to both sides or to neither one. The Clear Shore movement, which is growing louder every year, would like the stilled to have less say in how things are run. The land is for the living, they say. Let the dead rest. The Long Accord movement believes the opposite. 400 years of shared history cannot be unwound without unraveling everything. You have no position on this, professionally. Personally, you have quiet thoughts that you keep in a small room in your chest with the door shut. You learned early that choosing a faction when you are halvended is like standing in a river and picking a bank. You can do it. But you will have wet feet on one side regardless, and everyone will know it. You choose instead the question in front of you. The question in front of you now is this: 3 weeks ago, the founding survey disappeared. The founding survey is a document, a set of maps, really 400 years old, drawn during the first years of the compact when the stilled and the breathing sat down together and agreed, carefully and at length, where things began and ended. Property lines, boundary clauses. The legal language of 4 centuries of shared arrangement. It is kept in the cartographer's guild vault in the city of Caldenmere. And then one morning, 3 weeks ago, it was not there anymore. And the guild could not explain this. And the compact council became very quiet in the particular way that it becomes quiet when something has gone seriously wrong. 10 days ago, a coach driver in Ashford Bend mentioned to a market trader that his last fare before the rains began had been a very old man, translucent as old glass, with ink-stained fingers and a long leather map case, who had asked to be let down on the road north at a place called the Mapmaker's Inn. The market trader mentioned it to a guild clerk who happened to be buying parsnips at the next stall. The guild clerk put it in a letter to a council courier. The council courier traveled 4 days to find you in Duskholm, where you were sitting in your small apartment eating soup and reading through a stack of old palimpsest documents, one on top of another, their layers of old ink making patterns that were almost like a face. You agreed to go as you always do. You packed lightly, as you always do. One change of clothes, your documents, your small notebook with the soft leather cover, your breathstone lantern. You did not tell anyone where you were going, which is also how you always do things, not because you are secretive, but because there is no one who needs to know, and the habit of traveling quietly is one you formed early and have never found reason to give up. The old man with the ink-stained fingers is Oswin Pale. He is a stilled cartographer, one of the few remaining who worked in the original founding period, or close enough to it that the distinction barely matters. He has been retired for decades, living quietly in a small house near the coast. He should not have the founding survey. No one should have the founding survey except the guild vault, and the guild vault does not have it. And Oswin Pale was seen on this road 2 weeks ago with a map case. These are the facts. You are here to follow them north, gently, and see where they lead. You pass a stretch of road where the hedge on the left side has grown tall enough to block the wind, and, for a moment, the rain sounds different, lighter, contained, and the breathstone lantern steadies in the shelter of it. In that steadier light, for just a moment, your own hand is more visible than usual, and you look at it without meaning to. A face comes to you, uninvited, the way it sometimes does in quiet moments. A man, dark eyes, a way of smiling that had seemed, at the time, like honesty, like warmth, like something you could trust. You had been wrong. Not wrong in a small way. Wrong in the way that changes how a room feels after you have been in it. Wrong in the way that leaves something behind. You had read him with the same steady attention you give to everything, and you had seen what you wanted to see. And you had been wrong, and the cost of that wrongness was something you do not think about directly if you can help it. What you think about instead, when you think about it at all, is the way your certainty had felt exactly like clarity, the way confidence and blindness had worn the same face. You have been very careful since then, very measured, very good at keeping people at a comfortable distance where your judgment of them stays reliable and uncolored by anything as inconvenient as feeling. You do not linger on this. The hedge ends. The wind picks up. You walk forward, which is the only sensible direction. And then you see the inn. You hear it first. Actually, a low sound of warmth. If warmth can have a sound, which here it does. Voices behind glass. The soft knock of something wooden. And then the smell of it reaches you on the wet air. Wood smoke and dried herbs and something mineral and sweet underneath. Like old paper and hearthstone and years of meals and years of weather kept just outside the door. It is the smell of a place that has been lived in for a long time by people who meant it. Then the light. Warm yellow light in 4 windows on the ground floor and 2 above. Each one a different shade of amber depending on how many breathstones are burning inside and how close they are to the glass. The light falls out onto the road in long rectangles, broken by the rain, and the rain inside those rectangles is gold. The sign hangs from an iron bracket above the door, swinging in the wet wind, painted in careful Volundi lettering on dark wood. A compass rose, its points slightly worn at the edges. A candle, rendered in yellow and cream, and the words, neat and unhurried. The Mapmaker's Inn, Est, by Tomet Brace and his late wife, Enna. Shelter for all who travel by foot or memory. You stand on the road for a moment, just outside the reach of the light from the nearest window, and you look at the sign, foot or memory. An old way of saying it. A way that includes everyone, the breathing who walk in from the cold and the stilled who travel differently, who do not always need a road to move from one place to another, who carry their journeys inside them. An inn that has always been for both. You think of Oswin pale, translucent and ink-stained, climbing down from a coach on this road 2 weeks ago with a heavy leather case under his arm. If you were very old and very tired and carrying something important and needed somewhere to be quiet for a while, you might choose a place that had always been for everyone. A place that would not ask too many questions. A place where the sign outside said shelter and meant it. You walk forward into the light. Your hand finds the door handle, iron, cold, slick with rain, and you press the latch down and push, and the warmth comes out to meet you like something alive, wood smoke and herbs, and that deep mineral sweetness, and the sound of a fire, and 2 or 3 voices and rain on a roof that has heard rain for 30 years and knows exactly what to do with it. You step inside, and the door swings shut behind you. And outside, the autumn rain keeps falling. The door of the Mapmaker's Inn opens, and the warmth reaches you before you are even inside. It comes out to meet you the way warmth does in a place that has been warm for a very long time. Not a rush of hot air, but a deep, settled steadiness, like the inn has been holding its breath against the cold for so many years that it has simply become part of the walls. You step through, and the rain is behind you, and ahead of you is amber light, and the low crackle of a wide stone fire, and the smell of dried herbs and wood smoke, and something spiced simmering somewhere you cannot yet see. You stop just inside the door and let your eyes adjust. Low beams run across the ceiling, hung with bundles of herbs tied with string, and between them, small breathstone globes glow like little moons caught indoors, their light warm and slightly alive, shifting in a way that candle fire shifts, but slower, steadier, like a very slow breath. The fire in the hearth is the heart of the room, wide and deep, and the chairs around it have been sat in by so many travelers that they have shaped themselves into useful curves, the arms worn smooth and dark. There are 6 or 7 people in the room. A river merchant sleeping over her ale at a corner table, her chin nearly on the wood, 2 young scholars, both with the pale, translucent look of the stilled bent toward each other over their cups, talking in voices too low to hear but with the focused energy of a very old argument. An old breathing farmer with a long pipe, not smoking it exactly, just holding it, staring at the fire with the comfortable expression of a man who has decided he has thought enough for one lifetime. But it is the walls that hold you. The walls are covered in maps. Not tidy, framed things, not maps behind glass. These are travelers' maps, real ones, pinned and tacked, and sometimes simply glued flat to the plaster. Maps drawn on the backs of receipts, on cloth, on the inside pages of old books. Maps with notes crowded into every margin. The bridge is out here. This road floods in spring. Good water at the 3rd mile. The ferryman at this crossing says 1 coin, but he means 3. Some of the notes are in ordinary dark ink. Some are in silver, the kind the stilled write with, luminous and faint, the mark of someone writing from the other side of their own experience. Voices from people who knew that road once and wanted, in some small way, to be useful about it still. You are Solon Vare, and you love maps. You have always loved them. There is something in you that settles when you look at them, something that feels like recognition. Like the world saying here, this is where things are. This is what is true. And here are all the people who tried to help someone find their way. You stand there with your wet coat still on and let yourself feel it, just for a moment. You'll want the soup, says a voice, and Tommet Brace is already moving toward you. He is a large man, red-cheeked and warm in the way of someone who has spent 30 years feeding people and genuinely enjoyed it. He does not wait for an answer about the soup. He takes your wet coat from your shoulders with the practiced ease of a man who has done it 10,000 times and drapes it over one arm, pointing you toward a table near the fire with the other. Dreadful night, he says, already walking toward the back room. Been dreadful all week. You're the fourth late arrival in 3 days, which is strange for this road in autumn. But here we are. Sit, sit. I'll bring it to you. Where are you coming from? Never mind. You can tell me when you've warmed up. He is gone before you can answer. You sit, and the warmth of the chair is immediate and good, and you press your cold hands flat on the table and let the heat of the room find them. While you wait, you look at the room more carefully. Solon looks at every room carefully. It is not something she decides to do. It is simply how she moves through the world, the way some people listen for music or watch for color. She sees arrangements. She sees what is out of place and what is too carefully in place. 2 things catch her attention. The first is a woman sitting alone at the table nearest the window. She does not have a bag with her, or a coat, which means she is not a late traveler. She has been here long enough to put her things away already. She is young, perhaps a few years younger than Solon, with ink on 3 fingers and a notebook open in front of her, full of neat handwriting and small sketches. She is looking out at the rain with the expression of someone thinking hard about something that is not the rain. Then she looks up, and she catches Solon looking, and she smiles. Not the startled smile of someone caught, the easy smile of someone who expected to be noticed and is not bothered by it at all. The second thing is a door at the far end of the common room, past the fire and the farmer and the 2 scholars. There is a door, a closed door. This is not unusual. Most inns have private rooms behind closed doors, but there is a thin line of amber light underneath it, the distinct warm glow of breathstone, and from somewhere beyond it, barely audible under the rain and the fire and the low murmur of voices, there is a sound, a hum. You cannot quite hear it. It is not loud enough to hear. Exactly. But you feel it. Underneath everything, like a very low note held for a very long time. It has the quality of resonance, not resonance being used, not shaped or directed, but resting. The way a bell that has been rung 1,000 times still holds the memory of the sound, even when no one is touching it. Solon knows what that means. The stilled cannot use resonance. Not actively, not in the way the living understand it, but those who have been in the world for a very long time, who have lived through centuries of it, absorb it slowly, the way stone absorbs heat, and eventually they carry it with them. They carry it at rest. They carry it in their presence, like warmth. Someone very old is behind that door. Solon sets her hands flat on the table and looks at the closed door and thinks, Oswin Pale is in this inn. She is almost certain. She would be willing to set her lantern on it. The woman with the ink-stained fingers reaches her table before she has finished thinking it through. Ren Osalind, she says, sitting down across from Solon without being asked, which is forward, but not unfriendly. I'm a junior member of the Cartographers Guild. I've been here since yesterday. I'm also looking for the founding survey. She pauses. I think you might be looking for the same thing. Solon looks at her for a moment. Then she says, Solon Ver. I work independently. A pause. Yes, Wren nods. She seems pleased by this, rather than worried by it. Before either of them can say more, Tomet arrives with the soup. He sets it down with bread and a small clay pot of something spiced and fragrant, and then, without any sign of leaving, he pulls out the third chair and sits down in it, settling his large frame into it comfortably. He folds his hands on the table and looks at both of them with the expression of a man who has been waiting for exactly this conversation. "The guest in the private room," he says without preamble. "Solon is very still." Wren's pen stops moving. "He's been here 4 days," Tomet says. "Arrived on a Thursday evening, asked for the quiet room, the one at the back. Paid a week in advance, in good coin, which I appreciated." He pauses. He's stilled. Very old. You can see it in the way the light sits around him, all soft at the edges, like he's somewhere between here and somewhere else at the same time. He doesn't eat, of course, but he drinks cold water and sits for hours and looks at the maps on the walls. He asked to borrow any old ones I had that weren't pinned down, and I found him a few from the back room, survey copies mostly, and he sat with them for 2 whole evenings. Tomet looks at the fire. He hums sometimes. I don't think he knows he's doing it. He looks back at Solon. He said his name is Oswin. Solon picks up her spoon and sets it back down. "He asked," Tomet adds, more quietly. "Not to be found." The room is warm and steady around her. The fire pops softly. She can still feel, barely, that low hum underneath everything. "Did you tell anyone he was here?" she asks. Tomet is quiet for a moment. He looks at the fire in the way that means he is choosing his words. "I told you," he says. "And there was one other. Yesterday, before you arrived. A breathing man, maybe 40, well-dressed for this road. He came in and asked very specific questions. Were there any stilled guests? Was there an old man? Did he have a map case with him?" Tomet's voice is level. "I told him there was no one like that here. He stayed the night. Left this morning." He pauses. "I didn't like his eyes. He looked the way someone looks when they're pretending not to look. Careful in a way he didn't want you to see." Wren is writing in her notebook. Her pen makes a small, quick sound. Solon sits with that for a moment. Then she says, "Would Oswin be willing to see me?" Tomet thinks about it. He is not a man who answers quickly when it matters. "I'll ask him," he says finally. "But I'll tell him honestly who you are and what you're here for. He deserves that." He gets up and goes, and the chair is empty, and the soup is warm, and from the back of the room the amber line under the door glows on. You look at Wren across the table. She looks back at you. Her notebook is open, and you can see the edge of it, a rough sketch of this room. Tables marked, timestamps written neatly beside them. She has been busy. "All right," you say, very quietly. "Tell me what you actually know, and I'll tell you what I know. Not everything, but enough." She smiles again, and this time it is a different kind of smile, smaller, realer, the smile of someone relieved to stop pretending. Outside, the rain picks up. Inside, the fire breathes on, and the hum beneath everything continues, steady and low and patient, like someone who has been waiting a long time and has finally decided that tonight, at last, things will begin to move. Tomet comes back from the hallway with his hands folded in front of him and a look on his face like a man who has just been given careful instructions and intends to follow them precisely. "He'll see you," he says, looking at Solon. "Just you." And he was particular about one thing. He glances at the lantern on the table beside her. "Leave that here." Wren looks up from her notebook. "The lantern," she says. "The lantern Tomet confirms. Ren sets down her pen and looks at Solon with an expression that is trying very hard to be easy about this and not quite getting there. She is young enough that her face still shows everything. And what it shows right now is the specific frustration of someone who has worked hard to be in a room and is now being asked to stay outside it. She holds it for a moment. Then she breathes out slowly and picks her pen back up. "Fine," she says. But you watch the set of her shoulders as she turns back to the page, and you can see that she is not sulking. She is thinking. Her pen moves in small, careful lines, and her eyes are focused somewhere past the notebook, somewhere in the middle distance where plans take shape. It is reassuring in a way. It is also, in a small way, something to keep in mind. You leave the lantern on the table. Its warm amber light stays behind you as you move down the short hallway toward the closed door, and the further you walk from it, the more you feel the dark. Not a frightening dark, just the particular quiet darkness of a place where someone has chosen to keep the light low. There is a thin line of pale light under the door. Not breathstone, something older. Window light. Maybe the gray-white glow of a rainy night coming through glass. You knock softly. "Come in," says a voice. It is low and unhurried. The voice of someone who has not needed to raise it in a very long time. The room is small. That is the first thing. Small enough that 2 chairs and a narrow bed and a writing table fill it almost completely, and the window takes up most of one wall, and the rain runs down the outside of the glass in long, wandering lines. The smell reaches you before anything else. Cold water and old paper, and something underneath both of those things. Something harder to name, like the inside of a very old book that has been carried through many different kinds of weather and absorbed all of them, one by one, over a very long time. Oswin Pale is sitting in the chair by the window. He is exactly what his name suggests. Pale, almost colorless, the way the oldest stilled sometimes become, as if the world has slowly let go of the need to hold them in full color. His hair is white and his skin is close to it, and his hands, folded in his lap, are thin and very still. But his eyes are dark and clear, and when he looks at you, you feel it, the particular feeling of being seen by someone who has had a very long time to learn how to look. "What are you?" he asks. "Halvand, you say." He nods, slowly, as if this answers more than the question, as if it explains something he was already half sure of. "Sit down, then," he says. "You'll hear things in this room that breathing people miss." You sit in the other chair, and the rain runs down the glass, and Oswin Pale begins to talk. He does not tell his story in order. Old people rarely do, and you have spent enough time listening to know that this is not confusion. It is just a different sense of what belongs next to what. He places pieces down the way you might lay out a map, section by section, letting you see how they fit as they come. He was not one of the founders. He is clear about this. He was young when the founding survey was made, newly stilled, only a few decades past the threshold, which made him barely more than a child by the measure of a stilled life. He was an apprentice to one of the chief surveyors, and his job was to carry things and copy things and hold the measuring cord still in the wind, and to watch and to learn. He knew every page of the survey not as history but as something he had touched with his own hands, something he had helped carry across muddy fields, helped ink on long evenings by candlelight, helped fold and certify and seal. He knows the 3rd page of the Verdant Midlands section. He has always known it. There is a clause, he says, looking at the window rather than at you. A boundary clause. 2 old estates, one to the north, and one to the south of a small ridge. The surveyor who recorded the boundary made an error in the field. Not a large error, not a forgery. He simply read his instruments wrong in poor light. And the line was drawn 200 yards south of where it should have been. He pauses. That 200 yards contained most of the smaller estate's best farmland. You wait. The smaller estate was absorbed by the Northern family 3 generations later. The Northern family had connections. By then, no one was looking very closely at the original survey, and the error had become the record, and the record had become the truth. He is quiet for a moment. I have known this for 50 years. The rain presses steadily against the glass. I did not speak up, he says. I want you to understand that clearly. I knew, and I did not speak, and the reason was that I was afraid. He says it plainly, without softening it. Afraid of the family. Afraid of the guild. Afraid of the long argument, the long process, the long years of being the person who said an uncomfortable thing in a room full of people who had decided not to hear it. He looks at his hands. I am 400 years old, and I was afraid of an argument. That is not a thing I am proud of. You sit with this for a moment, and you do not say anything, because there is nothing to say that would make it smaller or larger than it is. It is just true, and you know, in some quiet part of yourself, that age does not cure fear. It just gives you more time to carry it. He tells you the rest. 3 weeks ago, the survey disappeared. He did not take it and does not know who did, but he knows that whoever has it will eventually need someone who can explain the 3rd-page clause, because the language is old and technical and most modern cartographers cannot read it without help. So he came here, to this small, out-of-the-way inn, on a road that is not the first road anyone would think to look, and he waited. I wanted it to be the right person, he says. You ask him why he did not simply go to the council and tell them what he knew. He is quiet for long enough that you hear the rain shift on the roof, softening slightly, finding its late-night rhythm. Because I do not know, he says at last, who in the council has known about the error and chosen to ignore it. And I do not want to walk into the wrong room. You understand this. You have walked into the wrong room before. You know what it costs? You ask him about the man who came yesterday, the careful-eyed man. Something in Oswin's face moves, not much, but enough that you notice it, the way you would notice a candle flame shift in still air. I heard him arrive, he says. I know his name. I have known his family for a long time. He looks at the window again. Davin Krell. His mother died last spring. She spent the last years of her life asking for a hearing that never came. He is a good man who has been waiting a very long time and has decided he is finished waiting. Did he take the survey, you ask? I believe so, Oswin says. But not to destroy it. He would never destroy it. A man who loves maps the way Davin Krell loves maps would not destroy one, not even to save himself. A pause. He took it to use it. To make it say, finally and formally, what it should have said from the beginning. You sit with this for a moment. The stone in your chest, the one you have carried since the last time you trusted the wrong person, sits heavy and familiar. You know what it is to want something to be said that should have been said a long time ago. You thank Oswin. You tell him to rest. You go back out into the warm, amber-lit common room, where the fire has burned lower and warmer, and the smell of dried herbs and wood smoke wraps around you like something you did not know you had missed. Wren is still at the table, but the notebook is closed. Her expression is different from when you left, quieter, more careful. The look of someone who has been sitting still and thinking hard and has arrived somewhere. I know who took it, she says. You sit down across from her. She has been in contact with people at the guild. She says this carefully, and you note the careful way she says it, but you let it go for now. A junior archive clerk, she says, told her 3 days ago that a mid-ranking guild official requested an unusual set of old boundary documents from the restricted stacks 2 days before the survey disappeared. I didn't think it mattered then, she says. I think it matters now. Davenkrell, you say? She looks at you. Davenkrell. She agrees. Then, slowly, how did you know? You tell her what Oswin told you. Not all of it, but enough. The incorrect clause. The old boundary. The farmland that was swallowed. The family that swallowed it. The error that became the record, that became the truth. Wren is quiet for a moment that feels longer than it is. Then, she says, very softly, that's the Krell land. She looks at the table. I know that family. Not well, but I know the name. That land was everything to them. The rain is steady on the roof now, a comfortable weight of sound, and Tommet appears from somewhere, with more cider, without being asked, and the three of you sit together around the table and understand, slowly and without saying it out loud, that the thing you are all inside is not exactly a crime. It is a grief. A grief that waited too long and became a mistake, the way griefs sometimes do. You feel the stone in your chest shift, just slightly. You know something about waiting too long, but there is still a stolen map. Still an official who has disappeared into the roads to the north. Still the question of what Davenkrell intends to do before anyone can reach him. Wren opens her notebook to a fresh page and sketches a road, quick, clean lines. She has a cartographer's hand, sure and fast. There is a town 2 hours north called Fenwick Hollow, she says. And in that town there is a small post office and notary where official documents can be filed for civil review. If Daven can get the survey filed as evidence in a civil claim before anyone recovers it, it enters the court record. And once it is in the court record, it cannot simply be taken back. He has a 2-day head start. Tommet, who has been standing near the fire and listening with the quiet, focused attention of a man who has spent 30 years overhearing important conversations, says, I can have a horse ready in 20 minutes. You look at Oswin's door. You know what you need. You need him, his voice, his knowledge, his 400 years of memory. His testimony is the only thing that makes the clause legible, that gives it weight. That turns an old piece of technical language into something a court can act on. Without him, you have a stolen map and a story that is hard to prove. With him, you have a witness. You do not know if he will come. You knock on the door again. The rain fills the silence while you wait. Then you hear it, the sound of a chair being moved, and the slow, careful weight of someone who has been sitting still for a very long time, gathering themselves to stand. I have been waiting 400 years to say what I need to say, Oswin says, through the door. His voice is calm and very dry. I suppose one more rainy night will not hurt. He comes out into the common room, and he stops, and he looks at the maps on the walls. All the maps Tommet has collected over 30 years, old ones, newer ones, hand-drawn ones, printed ones, maps of roads and rivers and coastlines and the hills beyond the hills. Oswin looks at them slowly, one by one, and his face is very still. And you watch it, and you see something there, the way you look at the faces of people you have known for a very long time, with a kind of full, quiet attention that has no need to say anything. Tommet packs a lantern, bread, 2 oilskin cloaks that smell of cedar and old rain. He talks the whole time he packs, about the road north, and the best place to ford if the low bridge is flooded, and the fact that he is making a proper autumn stew on Saturday, and it would be a genuine shame to miss it. He is serious about the stew. He gives your arm a firm, warm pat as you reach the door, and his hand is broad and solid, and it stays for just a moment. And you feel it. You go out into the rain. It is cold and soft and steady, and it falls on the 3 of you without any feeling of hurry, the way it has been falling all night, the way it will keep falling long after you are off the road and warm again. The lantern swings gently in Wren's hand. Oswin walks beside you without speaking, and his steps are careful and unhurried. and the rain falls on his pale hair, and he does not seem to mind it. The road bends north, and you follow it. The road north is narrow, and the old trees on either side lean in toward each other overhead, their branches almost touching, so that walking beneath them feels like walking through a long, low room that someone made from living wood and rain. The drops come through the leaves in ones and twos rather than a curtain, each one finding its own moment to fall, landing on the wet road stones with its own small sound. You notice this? The way each drop is separate. The way the rain up here feels less like weather and more like the trees talking quietly among themselves. Solon carries the breathstone lantern at her side, and the amber light swings with her steps, moving across the stones and the dark grass at the road's edge, catching the shine of wet leaves, warming the backs of her companion's hands. The light is the same color as a good fire seen through a window. It has that quality, the quality of something that knows you are cold and is doing its best. Oswin walks slowly, not from tiredness. The stilled do not tire the way breathing people do, but from long habit, the habit of a person who has spent 400 years learning that the world gives more to those who go carefully. You watch him move and you think, this is what patience looks like when it has had enough time to become a way of being. Unhurried, steady, worn smooth like river stone. Wren keeps pace with Solon, a half step ahead, her notebook tucked under her oilskin to keep it dry. She is asking Oswin questions as they walk, careful questions, slow ones, and she softens her voice into the formal register that people use when speaking with the stilled, a small courtesy that costs nothing and means something. Oswin answers her. Solon listens to both of them and does not speak, because this is how she works best. Quiet, attending, letting the shape of things come together in her own time. And the shape that comes together is this. Oswin knew Davin mother. Her name was Elna, and she used to bring her son to the guild's open library on Saturdays when he was small, a serious-faced boy with ink on his fingers, who sat beside his serious-faced mother and pored over the old surveys the way other children pore over picture books. Elna was a cartographer herself, a careful and skilled one who spent the last 30 years of her life building a case for her family's lost boundary claim, piece by piece, the proper way, through the proper channels. She filed it 4 times. Each time it was reviewed, and delayed, and quietly put away somewhere no one would look at it. The last time, she was told that the original survey document would need to be produced in person, and could not be submitted by copy. She died in the spring without producing it. Davin inherited her files, her evidence, all her careful years of work. And 3 weeks ago, when his guild position gave him access to the founding survey, he took it. Oswin says all of this slowly, in the way you say something you have been turning over for a long time. Not with drama, not with blame, with the heavy, careful weight of someone who understands that right and wrong do not always stand on opposite sides of a line, that sometimes they are standing in the exact same place, looking out at you with the same eyes. Solon says, was the original boundary wrong? Truly. Oswin says, yes, I was there. I watched the senior surveyor make the error. He was tired. It was the 47th day of the expedition, and it was raining, which I find either meaningful or simply typical of my life, and he transposed 2 reference numbers on the boundary marker. I wrote it down in my personal journal that same evening. I have the journal still. Wren stops walking. She says, you have written evidence. From the time of the original survey, Oswin says, yes. Wren says, then Davin doesn't need the founding survey at all. Your journal, your testimony, those are primary sources. Those are better. A long pause. A drop of rain falls from the branch above them, loud and alone in the quiet. Oswin says, I know, and Solon understands what he is not saying. The thing that sits beneath the words the way the low hum sits beneath all the other sounds in his presence. She says it gently, not as an accusation, but as a door being opened. You didn't come forward because you were afraid. And Davin didn't know about your journal. And his mother died, not knowing that help existed. Oswin does not answer. But she can see it, in the amber light. The way she has always been able to see things, the particular stillness of a person who has been carrying something for a very long time and is finally, carefully, thinking about putting it down. They walk on. The rain keeps its soft, unhurried pace through the leaves. The town of Fenwick Hollow is small and mostly dark at this hour, its streets wet and empty, its windows showing only the occasional thin line of light under a door. The clock in the small stone tower at the center of town rings out midnight as they come around the last bend, a low sound, round and resonant, rolling out through the rain like a stone dropped into still water. The notary office is narrow, squeezed between a grain merchant and an apothecary, with a single lit window on the ground floor casting a pale yellow rectangle onto the wet cobblestones outside. Notaries keep late hours in towns like this, because travelers arrive at unexpected times with time-sensitive needs, and the work of documentation does not pause for weather or for darkness. And there, coming out of the notary office's front door as they turn the corner of the last street, is Davin Krell. He is tall and straight in the way of someone who has spent years working with measurement and precision, a surveyor's posture, a habit of standing square to the world. He is somewhere in his 40s, with a lined face and tired eyes and a long leather map case tucked under his arm. He sees them at the same moment they see him, and he stops. He looks at Solon, the lantern, the official bearing, the halved quality that she carries without thinking about it, and she can see him understand what she is. He looks at Wren, takes in the guild insignia at her collar, and something in his face sharpens. Then he looks at Oswin, and something else moves across him entirely. Something without a simple name, something between recognition and a feeling too old and too complicated to be called by any one word. He says, very quietly, Oswin pale. And Oswin says his name back. Davin. The four of them stand in the empty street. The breathstone lantern burns its warm amber between them. The rain comes down soft, and even all around. No one speaks for a moment, and it is not the silence of a standoff or a confrontation. It is more like the silence of a breath held, waiting to see what comes next. Solon says, as quietly as she can, "Did you file it?" Davin says, "Not yet." The notary had concerns about the chain of custody. He wanted a second signature. I was going to come back in the morning. He looks down at the map case under his arm. He looks at Oswin again. He says, "Did you know all this time?" Oswin says yes. A long silence. The rain finds its soft rhythm again on the cobblestones around their feet. Davin says, "She asked for a hearing 4 times. My mother. She was careful and patient, and she did everything the right way, every time, and they shelved it every time." He stops. His voice is not raised. It is not angry, or it is. But the anger has been running for so long that it has worn itself down to something that sounds more like exhaustion, like a person who has walked a very long road and arrived somewhere, and is not sure anymore what they were hoping to find at the end of it. Oswin says, "I know, I was afraid. And then I was ashamed of being afraid, and the shame made it harder. And the longer I waited, the more impossible it seemed to begin. I know how that works. I have had 400 years to understand how that works." Davin looks at the map case. He says, "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted her work to matter, and this is the moment where Solon makes her decision. It comes from the part of her she has been arguing with for a long time now, the part that reads people, that has always known how to read people, The part she stopped trusting after the man whose face she had believed she understood and had been so wrong about. She has been carrying that mistake like a stone in her chest, heavy and constant, and every time she has begun to trust what she sees in someone, she has felt the stone and pulled back. She reads Devan Krell now, in the lantern light, in the rain, in the quiet of this empty street. She sees a tired man who loved his mother, a man who loves maps the way his mother loved them, who grew up in libraries with ink on his fingers, who has been patient for years and made one wrong choice in the service of something that is right. She sees the map case under his arm and the way he holds it, not like something stolen, but like something he is tired of carrying and doesn't know how to put down. She trusts what she sees, she says, Devan. Oswin has a journal, his personal record from the original survey expedition, in his own hand, dated, with the notation of the error on the night it was made. It is a primary source. It does not depend on the founding survey at all. If you return the survey to me tonight and allow Oswin to submit his journal and his testimony to the Compact Council, your family's claim can go forward cleanly, properly, without any of the rest of this. The council will have to hear it. That is protected under the Compact. Davin looks at her. He says, "They've refused it before." Solon says, "They refused a copy of a document. They have never refused the living testimony of a direct witness who was present at the original survey. That is different. That is a different thing entirely." She can see him thinking. She can see the tiredness and the hope and the doubt all moving across his face at once. Ren says, from beside her, quietly, "Let me help. I am Guild. I can submit the joint request, Oswin's testimony alongside your mother's original filing. If we frame it correctly, the Guild cannot bury it again without it becoming a matter of public record. I will make sure of that." And here's where Solon's old habit almost takes hold, because she looks at Ren, quick, ambitious Ren, who has not been entirely honest tonight about why she came, who has her own reasons for everything she does, and she almost pulls back from trusting her. She almost lets the stone in her chest decide. But she thinks it through the way she has always known how to think. Before she stopped believing herself, she thinks, Ren is ambitious. Probably she will benefit from this. Probably this will do her career some good. And she knows it. And some part of her is here for exactly that reason. And also, Ren means it. Both things are true at once. Ambition and sincerity sharing the same space in the same person. That is not suspicious. That is just a person being a person. That is the most ordinary thing in the world. Solon lets herself believe what she can see. She looks at Devan and she says, "What do you want to do?" Davin looks at the map case for a long moment. He looks at Oswin, at the old cartographer standing quiet in the amber light, with 400 years of carried things behind his eyes. He says, "I want it to be over. I want someone to say, yes, the boundary was wrong. Yes, your family was right. I want that on a page somewhere, official, with a seal." Oswin says, "I will say it, and I will put my name and my seal to it. And I will say it clearly enough that there is no room left for it to be shelved or delayed or quietly forgotten." Davin holds out the map case. His hands are shaking, just slightly. And Solon takes the case from him with both of hers, and she holds it steady for a moment, not making anything of it, not drawing attention, just the simple, practical steadiness of one person helping another person through a moment when their hands are not quite working right. A few seconds, no more. Then she takes the weight of it fully, and he lets it go. The leather is cool and worn smooth and heavier than it looks. She holds it, and she feels the weight of 400 years of agreed lines and careful measurements and patient, imperfect human work. It does not feel like a burden. It feels like something that belongs somewhere, finally going home. The rain comes down soft and even all around them. The breathstone lantern glows its warm old gold. And it is over. They walk back through the rain. It is very late now, and the rain has changed. It is softer than it was earlier tonight, slower. The kind of rain that is not going anywhere and is not trying to. It falls on the road and on the trees and on the three of them without any particular hurry. The way the seasons come and go, the way the years move through Valundra, one into the next, like water finding the lowest place and settling there. Solon carries the map case under her arm. It is heavier than she expected. All that old agreement, all those borders and river rights and forest claims written down 400 years ago in careful silver ink, all of it folded into worn leather. Still safe, still whole, still true. Wren is just slightly ahead, her notebook open, her pen moving. Not sketching this time, writing words. A record. Solon watches her for a moment and thinks, yes, someone should be writing this down. Oswin walks beside her. He is quiet in the easy way of someone who has had a very long time to get comfortable with silence. After a while, he says, without any particular weight to it, "You did not hesitate." At the end, Solon says, "I almost did," he says. "But you didn't." She thinks about that. The rain falls. Somewhere in the trees to their left, water is moving in a small stream, finding its way down to the lower ground. 3 pairs of feet on the wet road, 2 breathing. 1 stilled, moving at the same pace. She says, "I made a mistake once. About a person. I trusted someone I should not have trusted, and it cost me. And after that, I stopped trusting what I saw, even when I could see clearly. Even when I knew," he says. And now, she thinks about Wren's face when she offered to help. The wanting and the honesty both there at the same time, both real. She thinks about Tommet pressing bread into their hands at the door before they left, not saying anything, just pressing it into their hands. She thinks about Davin's hands shaking and then going still. She says, "One mistake is not the end of being able to see." I think I just forgot that for a while. Oswin walks without speaking for a long moment. Then he says, "I was afraid for 50 years. I kept thinking that if I waited, the right moment would come along and make everything easier. But there is no moment that makes the truth easier. There is only the moment when you decide the truth matters more than the waiting." She says, "Is that what tonight was?" He says, "I think I decided when I came to the inn. I think I was just waiting for someone to knock on the door." And then, through the trees ahead, the lights of the Mapmaker's inn appear amber and warm and steady in the wet dark, the smoke still rising from the chimney, which means the fire is still going and Tommet is still awake, which means there will be something hot to drink. This simple knowledge settles in Solon's chest like something coming home. Wren pushes the door open, and the warmth of the inn comes out to meet them all at once. The smell of it, dried herbs and old wood smoke and paper and something faintly sweet underneath it all, the breathstone light in the ceiling globes, amber and slow, the whole of it together like a long breath being let go. The smell of the world taking care of itself. Tommet is behind the bar, polishing a glass with great concentration. He looks up when they come in, and the relief on his face is the kind that does not need any words. He sets the glass down and says, "Soup." That is all. Just soup. And goes to get it. They sit by the fire. All 4 of them, Solon and Wren and Oswin, and Tommet, who has pulled his chair from behind the bar and set it at the table because he has decided this is his evening too. And he is not wrong about that. Oswin takes something from inside his coat. A small book, very old, the cover worn soft, the spine giving a little under his hands. He sets it on the table. His journal from the survey, 400 years old, still carrying what it has always carried. He says, "I will bring this to the council. I will go with it. I will stand in the chamber of memory and say what I saw, and I will say it clearly, and it will become part of the record alongside everything else." Wren says, not looking up from her notebook, "I will file it, and I will write about it afterward, so it stays somewhere people can find it." Tommet, who has been listening while he ladles soup, says, "Good. That's good. Eat first." Solon holds her bowl in both hands and lets the warmth of it move up through her fingers. The fire shifts and settles. The maps on the walls move very slightly in the warm air from the hearth. All those careful records of where things are and where they have always been. The old handwriting and the new lying alongside each other on the same walls, the same pages. She thinks that is what a map is. Really. Not the land itself, but someone paying attention to it and wanting to pass that on. Someone saying, "I was here. This is what I found. I want you to know it." She looks at the map case resting against the wall by the door, waiting to go home. 400 years old, and still right, and now going to be a little more right once Oswin's journal sits beside it and his voice has been heard in the chamber. Not fixing it by throwing it away. Just adding the true thing alongside it, the way the inn works, the stilled and the breathing and the old and the new all in the same room, all part of the same long story. She tries to feel the stone in her chest, the one she has carried since the mistake, the one that made her doubt her own eyes every time it mattered. She sits with the fire on her face and the warm bowl in her hands, and she tries to find it. It is smaller. She does not know exactly when it got smaller. Somewhere on the road, she thinks. Somewhere between Oswin's closed door and Davin's shaking hands and the sound of Wren writing in the dark. In the small, ordinary work of paying attention and trusting what she saw. Not gone. She does not think it will ever be entirely gone, but smaller. The kind of thing you carry without noticing it most of the time. The fire is low now. Just the warm red heart of it, the part that will last through the night without needing anything more. The breathstone globes on the ceiling have deepened, the amber going towards something more like old gold, the way they always do very late at night, as if they too are settling down. The inn is quiet. The other guests went to bed long ago. Only this table, this small circle of warmth, at the end of a rainy road in the middle of Volundra. Tommet starts talking. Not the cheerful, busy talk of a man running his inn, but something slower, softer. He talks about his wife Enna, who died 12 years ago. She went through the threshold almost right away, he says, with a small fond sound in his voice. She was always efficient. She never liked to leave things half done. He misses her the way you miss something that was part of how you understood yourself. Not with sharp grief anymore, but with a kind of steady awareness, the way a room always knows where a chair used to stand. Oswin listens the way the very old stilled listen, with all of themselves, he says. When Tommet pauses, she sounds like someone who knew her own mind. Tommet says, "She did. She always did. I never really did. But she did enough for both of us. And somehow that worked out fine." Wren is still writing, slowly now. Not notes anymore. Something more careful, more her own. Solon can tell by the way her pen moves. Solon leans back in her chair. The fire is very soft now, just warmth and a little light. Her body is tired in the good, specific way of someone who has walked a long distance and done a real thing and is now somewhere safe and still. She lets her thoughts slow down. She stops asking them to go anywhere. She just lets the fire have her attention. just the fire. Just the rain on the roof, steady and soft. Just the low, comfortable sound of Tomet's voice. Still going, still unhurried, talking now about his garden, about the cat in the stable who will not answer to any name he tries. Oswin is very still beside her. She does not look at him. She can simply feel that he is there, the way you can feel a candle in a room without looking at it. The long, quiet hum of his resonance all those years held gently inside him sits in the room like a single note held on a very old instrument. Not sad, not heavy, just present, just the sound of a very long life. Still here, still warm. The map case is by the door. The journal is on the table. Ren's notebook is nearly full. Tomet's fire is going to last until morning. Outside, the rain comes down on the roof of the Mapmaker's Inn, the way it has come down on this road every autumn for as long as there has been a road here. Steady and soft, the world breathing. Volundra doing what it has always done. The twice-breathing world, the living and the stilled and the ones moving between them. All of them held gently by the same patient ground. All of them part of the same long story that started before anyone can remember and will go on long after this night has settled into ordinary memory. Solon closes her eyes. Not to sleep yet, just to let it all be dark for a moment. The bowl is warm in her hands. The fire is warm on her face. The rain is steady on the roof. She thinks, I was here. This is what I found. And then, very slowly, she stops thinking anything at all. The inn holds them. The fire holds them. The rain holds them. Soft and even and without any hurry at all. Falling on the roof, and the road and the trees, and the whole dark, quiet countryside. Falling on the Mapmaker's Inn. Somewhere between one place and another in the middle of a world that has learned, over a very long time, to hold its people gently. Everything is quiet. Everything is well. The amber light breathes. The rain continues, and the night moves, slowly and without any rush, toward morning.